Welcome everybody to freedom in downtown Toronto, freedom in the capital of Ontario, and freedom in Canada. Listen, I want somebody else is going to be up speaking after me, and I just wanted to remind everybody that man and I stood on this statue base back in the fall of 2020, and it was a marvelous time. It was a little bit warmer, it was rainy that day, but in October, Maxime Bernier and I were up here on this statue talking about and breaking the laws of Ontario at that time. And I challenged Doug Ford. I said, come on out and give me a ticket. Come on out. I want to see you in court, Doug. And he was cowardly. And he didn't come out that day. But he did come out 25 more times after that. And I've got a wall full of tickets now. And I wanted to say this. Last Sunday, 2 OPP cruisers drove up to my house on the Sunday night. And I looked out, we were sitting in the kitchen, and my daughter said to me, I wonder who that might be, 2 cars coming up the laneway. And we all looked at each other and we said, well, it's probably the cops. And sure enough, 2 OPP cruisers were pulling in the laneway. So I went outside and I greeted them. And I said, what are you doing here? And they said, oh, we're just bringing you some more paperwork. I said, it must be a hell of a load of paperwork for 2 cruisers to come up to my house with summonses. We sent them on their way. We've got lots to do, lots of battles in the courts. But where we're going to win that is right here, in the streets, is where we're going to win our freedom. So I want to thank you all for being here, for speaking out, standing up in defense of freedom. Because we all know that this is a great struggle and a war with the enemies of freedom. But I want to also say, let you know about the Canada today compared to the Canada that I grew up in. These days, we often hear Canadians describing themselves or other Canadians as being nice, polite, and always saying sorry, even when there's nothing to be sorry about. It's as if Canadians today only see themselves through this singular lens, this singular defining characteristic of being docile, passive, and deferential. Now, I'm not opposed to anybody being nice. I'm not opposed to anybody being polite or apologetic. But if that's our only defining characteristic, then let's not be surprised that we are easily bossed around, easily bullied, and we think that we're unable to fight back. But that doesn't describe me, and it doesn't describe you. And it certainly doesn't describe the Canada of my youth. When I was young, I had a hero. We all had heroes. People that we looked up to. People that we aspired to be like. People who embodied the characteristics that we tried to emulate. One of my heroes was a fella named George Chuvalo. Everybody remember George Chuvalo? Raise your hand. He was the 5-time heavyweight champion of Canada. He's Canada's champion who fought 93 bouts in the ring. He fought Joe Frazier, George Foreman, and Muhammad Ali. And in 93 bouts, he was never knocked down and he was never knocked out. And as Muhammad Ali said after the fight, 15 rounds at Maple Leaf Gardens, Muhammad Ali said, George Chuvalo, he's the toughest guy I've ever fought. Now, George Zavallo is a kind, nice, and considerate man, a gentleman. But make no mistake, he's a scrapper, he's a fighter, and he represents my Canada. He embodies my Canada. Scrappers and fighters. We might not always win, but no one is going to knock us down, and no one is going to knock us out. And that's who we have to be in this fight for our freedoms, in this battle, in this war with the enemies of freedom. And who are these enemies that seek to destroy our freedom, destroy our economy, and who are shredding the very fabric of our society and our families? There are those that we can see. Our governments who seek to punish us if we act freely. Our public health authorities who seek to keep us in a state of fear and in denial of the evidence. Our media who promote these false narratives and censor and suppress those who speak with honesty and with facts. And then there are those who collaborate and enforce the message of fear, danger, and terror. The shopkeeper who refuses your entry if you smile and show your face. He is an enemy of freedom. The pub owner who demands to see your vax pass or refuses you service is an enemy of freedom. The employer and the labor unions who demand mandatory vax or to fires you are enemies of freedom. The doctor who refuses to fill out your medical exemption and the teacher who places a mask on your child are all unseen collaborators and enemies of freedom. Every person who casts scorn and ridicule upon those who act freely is an enemy of freedom. Then there are the profiteers who fill their pockets because of our fear. Big Pharma, like Pfizer, Moderna, and so many others. Big Tech, who also censor and suppress our freedoms, are enemies of freedom. And there are the hosts of so many others, like Fauci, who helped create a pandemic by creating a bioweapon with the communist Chinese in Wuhan. They are enemies of freedom. These people and their businesses are not our allies. They are the enemies of freedom. But there are more. There are the ones that I call the grifters of freedom. Those who have attempted to sabotage the freedom movement or to hijack it for their own personal fame or gain. They have fractured and sowed division within our movement, and they do it under the cloak and guise of being our friend and ally. And now we see more clearly what is in store for us, or what is not in the stores for us. As the mandatory vax for truckers take hold, our grocery stores and food supplies are being shorted. The shelves are being emptied. Our cattle feedlots in Western Ontario are in peril and in crisis. Basic food and necessities of life are intentionally being shorted by the enemies of freedom. And in every war, there's a term that's called the fog of war. It describes the confusion of not knowing who or where your enemy is. So let us all be alert. Let us all be awake. So we know who our enemy is and let us stand up to these enemies and stare them down and reject their narrative of fear. They won't accept Dr. Tam or Dr. Karen Moore or Justin Trudeau or Doug Ford as our Canadian leaders. They are the enemies of our freedom. Let us all be like George Zavallo. Let us all go into the ring, regardless of who our opponents are. No matter how powerful they look or how daunting they appear, let them know we will never be knocked out. We will never be knocked down. We will never give up. We will go the distance, however far and however long that distance is. We will not surrender. We are Canadians, and we are free Canadians. On this stage, and everyone in this crowd are free fighting Canadians, and we will not give up. We must be like that childhood hero of mine. We must put Ontario and Canadians first. We must put faith, freedom, and families before fear. And we must fight to always defend them every time. Thank you very much. Give it up for Randy Hillier! Randy!
Every single one of you has responsibility to stand up for what is right and make sure that civil disobedience is the only way we can end this peacefully and fast.